Well, I suppose you could be forgiven your bad art if you're 4.5 years old, but there's no excuse for that COVID-19 haircut. Oh well. Hello, I'm Craig Johnson, and today we have a short and silly April Fool's Day literary lockdown. It's about bad poetry, but I thought we could pause to consider bad art as well. Now, my friend Ben Lorberg was staying with me for a while last year because of a terrible dispute about the refrigerator at the Airbnb where he had been living. We don't have time to get into that issue. But while he was here at my house, there it is, one night he went out with his friend Kat to one of those places where you drink wine and learn how to paint, whatever. Well, he maybe had a little too much wine because he was so mortified by his painting of a vase with flowers that he wrote Kat's name on it and tried to pass it off as hers. Eventually, though, he relented and initialed his bad art. Then he gave it to me, with the expectation that I'd toss it into the trash. But here's the thing. I didn't think it was that bad. Oh, it's not good. I'm not saying that. But it's kind of kitschy, sweet, and when someone you know gives you something they made and there's a story attached to it, well, that changes things. So I hung it over his bed. And it seemed a little better to both of us. Maybe because the guest room also has several original artworks that my dad bought from street vendors in Hong Kong in the 1970s. All that burnt orange. Anyway, yes, there is such a thing as bad art. Don't get me wrong. But sometimes there are mitigating circumstances. Well, time for bad poetry. The video is pretty self-explanatory and pretty goofy. A couple of things to look for during the boring parts. Behind my neck are my 2 Ivy Awards. They were the Twin Cities Theater Awards, but they stopped several years ago. Talk about something changing in value, right? I mean, look at how I'm clutching it at that award ceremony in 2011. Mine! When I move, you'll see a baby picture right behind me, and there's also another photo of me at age 5. I guess I was done with horses and had become obsessed with Mary Poppins. You can see my Sound of Music video for further analysis of the Julie Andrews years. Well, that's a lot of nothing. Speaking of which, here's the video. Hello, everybody. I'm Craig Johnson, and it looks like I have flowers sticking out of my head. That's because it's April Fool's Day, so for Literary Lockdown, we are going to celebrate foolish literature. I am going to read just the first stanzas, because it's all we can take, of 11 very, very bad poems by deservedly forgotten authors, while you can ponder the eternal question, why would somebody write a poem about that? Here we go. Harmonious hog, draw near, no bloody butchers here, thou needst not fear. Harmonious hog, draw near, and from thy beauteous snout warble some anthem out. Misfortune sometimes is a prize, and is a blessing in disguise. A man with stout wooden leg, through town and country, he can beg. Now for a minute, lend your lugs. Our theme it is potato bugs. You have gone, old tooth, though hard to yield. You have long stood alone, like a stub in a field. Fear not, grand eagle, the bay of the beagle. O ditch of all ditches, death's storehouse of riches, where wan disease slumbers in cavernous deeps, more puppies and cats, to say nothing of rats, and offal and filth in all manner of heaps. In ages past, animals lived and died, and afterwards were petrified by enclosure in massive rocks, and thus became fossilized blocks. The oldest known rocks contain lime, thus proving at that remote time animal life did then abound, which may fill us with thought profound. Holy Moses, have a look! Flesh decayed in every nook! What on this wide earth that is made or does grow by nature is more homely, yet more beautiful than the useful potato? Who hath prophetic vision sees in future times a 10-ton cheese? O ancient solitary egg, O source of smell on every side, O tell me whence thy stink I beg, or I to suicide. That last one was by James J. Hill's 11-year-old grandson, Jerome Hill, who I am happy to report went on to become an accomplished filmmaker. He won an Academy Award, and he established the Jerome Foundation. So, I know your question, was James J. Hill ever celebrated in verse? Yes. Everything from a children's jingle, "Twixt hill and hell, there's just one letter. Were Hill in hell, we'd feel much better," to an extended dialect piece by an anonymous author that begins, Jim Hill, you're full of skill, hard work and pluck and luck, Jim. I niver knowed you're doin' ill. I niver knowed you're stuck, Jim. And it continues that way for 44 more verses. Happy April Fool's Day. A history note. At the end of the video, I mentioned James J. Hill. He was known as the Empire Builder, and his Great Northern Railway made him one of the richest and most powerful figures of America's Gilded Age. And since we're talking about art, his collection of French landscape and romantic paintings by Corot, Courbet, Delacroix, that's Corot's Springtime of Life right there, formed the heart of the Minneapolis Institute of Art's initial collection, which Hill helped found. Prized as really valuable first-class art, Hill's words back in the day. By the 20th century, they definitely took a back seat to the Impressionists who followed. So, not bad art, but their value changed. Anyway, the Hill House on Summit Avenue in St. Paul is a National Historic Landmark and a historic house museum, and I managed it for many, many years. Now, the little boy who wrote the poem about the stinky egg was Hill's grandson, James Jerome Hill II, known as Jerome in the family, who went on to become an Academy Award-winning documentary filmmaker, a painter, a composer, and a philanthropist. He worked with Andy Warhol at the factory and supported a lot of the avant-garde artists of the 1960s. So many at that time thought that was bad art, but now, of course, it's prized. Tastes change, values rise and fall. Those poems, though, yikes.